Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 5th, 2017 regular meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Please join us as we salute our flag, and please stand for a moment of silence for all of our fathers that aren't with us anymore. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson?
Present.
Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan?
Here.
Alderman Beer?
Here.
Alderman Casey?
Here.
Alderman Gurman?
Here.
Alderman Giannatasio?
Here.
Alderman Golden? Here. Alderman Grant?
Here.
Alderman Hardeman? Here. Alderman Shaw? Alderman Smith? Here. Alderman Veccarelli? Here. Alderman Vitro? Here. Alderman Vitale? Here. All present, Mr.
We have 15 present. We do have a quorum. Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next portion of the meeting is devoted to public comment. Statements. Gentlemen. The next portion of the meeting is devoted to public comment. Statements are limited to the legislative function of the Board of Aldermen. The time limit granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements, or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes. And when anyone wishing to address the board can do so at this time.
Good evening. My name is Louise Puzo, and I live at 20 Brookdale Avenue in Milford, and I also own a house on 168 Broadway that belonged to my late husband, and it was in the family for 80 years. I'm here to address you on behalf of not only myself, but the Wildermer Beach Association. We have some issues. One of which is we're looking for a noise ordinance. We had a very, very difficult weekend. Back in March, I found out that my neighbors on 204 Broadway began renting to Airbnb. And anyone who knows what Airbnb is like, you'll understand my concerns. I followed up with the zoning enforcement officer only to find out that it was illegal. After getting clarification from Attorney Burcham, we found out that it was a legal activity. Now, meanwhile, I contacted the board of the Wildermer Beach Association, of which I'm a part, and I filed a complaint, so did the board for the Wildermer Beach Association. On Memorial Day, we were graced with some wonderful renters that had a high school graduation for 200 kids. There were 11 phone calls to the police department. There were approximately 5 blocks of the area that were affected. We had screaming, drinking, general nuisance, and the police were down there I don't know how many times. We ended up with the last call being made at 2 a.m. where the partiers were in a neighbor's driveway continuing the party. Obviously, if you know what Airbnb is like, you know that there's very little deposit, so you have nothing to go back at. People do not care that it's our neighborhood because they're only going to be here for 2 days at the max. And basically, the parents rented this for the kids and left them on their own to have a wonderful time. One of the neighbors described it as it looked like ants. Somebody else described it as it looked like a rock concert. We're entitled, because we are residents, taxpayers, we're entitled to some peace. We're entitled to a quality of life. I'm coming to you to ask you to give the police some background so that they can come in and enforce some ordinances. We need a noise ordinance. I am sure this is not the first time you've heard it. We need something. We need you to start looking at Airbnb and figure out what the heck we can do about it. I realize many cities across the United States are working on this at this time. It doesn't work in Milford. There are 50 Airbnbs in Milford at this point. 4 of them are in the Wildemere Beach area. We're a beach community. We're 20 feet apart from each other. You can't put a hotel in the neighborhood and hope it's going to work out. And that's exactly what, in my estimation, that's what this is. Any of you who have been around since the 80s know that the Wildemere Beach area has gone through a heck of a time back in the 80s when we've had a wonderful partnership with the city, with the police department, and with our own members. And we're about 60 families strong at this point. Now, that partnership can only do just so much. So I'm asking you as the elected officials to do your bit. It's time for you guys to get involved, and anything we can do to help, we will be there in force. We're a very, very active community, and we're not going to go back to the 80s. And I'm going to leave you with some of the letters that were written, the complaints, and also Mayor Blake, I think Carol Klingley from our president wrote to you and copied the aldermen in. So this is what we're dealing with. We need your help. Thank you, and if there's any questions, I can answer them, or if there's any further things, I thank you very much for your time.
Hello, my name's Janet McAllister. I live at 197 Maplewood Avenue. I came here tonight to make you aware of concerns among Milford residents about the upcoming installation of LED street lights throughout Milford. Mayor Blake met a couple weeks ago with 10 individuals, including Alderman Anderson, and I do want to say here thank you to the mayor for making time in your schedule to meet with the group, and also to Mr. Anderson for joining us at the meeting. The concerns we brought to the mayor have to do with 4,000K bulbs, which are bright white light bulbs high in a blue spectrum light that there's been some concerns raised about. And the concerns brought to attention most prominently by the American Medical Association include these lights can result in what's called a disability glare. The blue wavelengths of light scatter in the human eye, and they cause discomfort and visual impairment, especially in elderly people or people that have eye ailments, and this maybe affects safety on our roads. These lights are also associated, lights in this spectrum are also associated with sleep disruption. The blue light disrupts circadian rhythms, which control our sleep cycles. And they do that by suppressing the production of melatonin, which is a natural hormone that helps us relax and go to sleep. They're also associated with disruption of wildlife. These high K lights are known to disrupt fish and bird migrations, mating behaviors of animals, and feeding behaviors of nocturnal animals. We think that none of these concerns are insignificant, and we asked the mayor to take them seriously and to request that United Illuminating install 3,000K light bulbs instead. 3,000K lights, they have less blue light, and they emit a softer, more amber light. These 3,000K light bulbs, our understanding is they are available to Milford if we request them. And in fact, Eversource, which covers most of the state of Connecticut, is installing 3,000K light bulbs in all of their LED retrofits. Now, the reasons the mayor cited for supporting the installation of 4,000K bulbs are that they are 20% more efficient than the 3,000K bulbs, and that if we request these bulbs instead of the 4,000K, it may delay a cost savings for Milford because of some administrative changes that UI would need to make for our billing. I will say that I've done some more research in regarding the difference in energy efficiency. The technology in LED lighting is advancing rapidly, and the Cree company has recently released a 3,000K LED light bulb that is similar in energy efficiency as the 4,000K bulb, where only a year ago there was a 20% difference. That gap has closed. Regarding delay, I think an argument could actually be made that given the rate of advancement in LED technology, Milford could possibly achieve even greater cost savings by delaying and getting later generation bulbs. But really more importantly, I think the installation of LED lighting throughout communities is new. It's a wonderful opportunity that will help us reduce our carbon footprint. But it's a long-term investment. The bulbs that are installed will last 20 years, if not longer. Right now, we may not know all the implications for human and environmental health from lighting our environment so brightly for several years or even longer into the future. But I and other like-minded citizens object to taking part in a long-term experiment on the effect of LED lights on our bodies. We don't want to get years down the road and find out that there are some consequences that are significant, and we're in the midst of something that will be very expensive to undo. There are other communities in the U.S. that have spent much money replacing new 4,000K LED lights with 3,000K lights when the bright lights have disturbed people in neighborhoods and they've responded to complaints. We'd like to avoid that situation and encourage a more feasible and more prudent alternative, and so I ask you to support the installation of 3,000K bulbs in Milford. Thank you. Oh, and finally, myself and a partner, a woman named Stacy Clark, we have written a letter to the editors that will be in the papers this week. I did bring copies, and I'd be happy to pass that around to you all. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time?
Hello. My name is Erin Pinsence. I live at 11 Briggs Court here in Milford. Yes? Can you hear me now? Okay.
Can you repeat your name one more time, please?
Yes, my name is Erin Pinsence. I live at 11 Briggs Court. I actually brought copies of what I'm about to read to you. Can I just pass them out? What you're receiving is not only what I'm going to read, but also the abstracts of many medical studies that have been done on melatonin suppression, et cetera. This is sort of piggybacking on the LED lights that are going in. Dear members of the Board of Aldermen, recently I sent a letter to Mayor Blake regarding the United Illuminating's scheduled installation of new 4,000 Kelvin LED lights in Milford. First, let me say that I'm very excited that you all and Mayor Blake are taking the steps toward making Milford more sustainable, cleaner, and greener. LED streetlights are without a doubt a smarter decision, both financially and logistically, for decreasing our carbon footprint. I am also very proud that our town now has a sustainable CT committee to weigh the decisions about projects that will affect our environment and health. While I'm excited to see that our streetlights changed from the high-pressure sodium existing lights to LED lights, I have asked Mayor Blake to consider a lower color temperature than 4,000 Kelvin, specifically 3,000 Kelvin. After writing a letter and attending a meeting with Mayor Blake regarding these light bulbs, I learned that the statement issued by the American Medical Association regarding the potential hazard the 4,000K lights can cause was not a convincing one for him. I'm hoping that the discussion of other studies unrelated to the AMA findings is convincing for some of you tonight. Additionally, I understand that he and you all have had an immeasurable task this year in terms of budget planning, and that the replacement of the costlier high-pressure sodium lights with LED lights comes at a most convenient time for our town. I respect the dignity that you bring to this task, and I've seen how diligently you work. However, I'm here to ask again that you consider scientific studies that I'll discuss showing that LED does in fact affect macular degeneration, obesity, diabetes, cancer growth, and a host of other medical concerns. Further, I think there is still time to change to 3,000 Kelvin without incurring a major cost. For those of you who feel that you don't know much about LED lights, you do. They're the lights in your cell phone, your computer screen, your TV, and on many billboards. LED lights have a higher percentage of short wavelength light in the blue and white spectrum versus the longer wavelengths of light that we're more accustomed to, which are higher in yellows and reds. LED lights are great until it comes time to sleep. In fact, the phototherapy lights, also called happy lights, that are used by people with seasonal affective disorder or depression use LED technology to stimulate that awake feeling, helping some get out of bed. These are the same type of lights that doctors are recommending be turned off at least a half an hour before going to sleep so the brain has time to come down from that wakeful mode. Further, new phones have the ability to turn down the color temperature of the LED lights so that children or adults who do use their phones or tablets before bed aren't adversely affected. Yes, these are the kinds of lights that we are putting on our streets, which is great if you're a police officer patrolling a heavily trafficked downtown area, but not so great if you're trying to sleep and happen to have one in your front yard. No light post in your front yard? Lucky you. But do you wear glasses or contacts, or have glaucoma or some other retinal degenerative disease? If so, you're more susceptible to furthering the damage when you look at LED lights. I wear contacts, and I already have difficulty driving at night due to the light halos that form around oncoming cars that can alter my depth perception. I do my best to protect my eyes from further damage, and I would love to know that so are the people making those decisions that are out of my control. While macular degeneration is terrifying to those living with it, the main reason the AMA and medical professionals worldwide state that short wavelength light LED is bad for you is because it suppresses melatonin. This is a fact that has been proven in independent study after independent study, a few of which I have provided the abstracts. It is the reason phototherapy works and predated our street lights issue. Melatonin controls the human circadian rhythm, our day or night hormone cycles that have far-reaching effects. Melatonin helps regulate our awake sensation by affecting brain and muscle activity as well as hunger. Hunger sensations affect insulin regulation of our blood glucose levels. LED light exposure, specifically at night, has been linked to glucose intolerance and a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Further, melatonin is an anti-cancer hormone. I'll state that again for severity. It is an anti-cancer hormone. It inhibits cancer growth, inhibits metastasis or spreading, and inhibits the Warburg effect, or the way that cancer cells create energy for growth. Melatonin supplements are currently being used to treat breast cancer. Melatonin supplements increase chemotherapy effectiveness. Melatonin supplements repress the metastasis of HER2 positive human breast cancer cells. And no, melatonin does not just help the ladies. Melatonin also has been proven to reduce growth of prostate cancer, a leading cause of cancer among men. Further, melatonin decreases growth, metastasis, and energy production significantly in non-small cell lung cancer, which is the leading cause of death from cancer worldwide. My mother, Donna, is a 65-year-old breast cancer survivor with glaucoma. While all of these may sound like a lot of studies done in labs to you, this is all very personal for me. And you may ask, but how much would Milford's LED lights actually affect our melatonin levels or damage our retinas? The answer is we don't know. Some people are more susceptible than others biologically to both hormone interruption and eye irritation. Some people may be a victim of happenstance in that they live right under one of these streetlights or in the downtown area where the LED glow will be inevitably higher. Some people work at night or have to drive long distances in the dark more often than others. The LED lights will affect individuals differently. The fact is, however, that if even 10% of Milford is unhappy after they're put in, there will be a much bigger issue: angry constituents. And your response perhaps will be, why can't people just get blackout curtains and call it a night? Get it? Well, we passed a law years ago banning smoking in many public places because what you do to your body is fine, but there's no need to put me at risk. That is how I believe many people will view a town too bright. It is your choice to let your child watch his or her 6,000 Kelvin iPad right before bed, but I will not be doing that with my son, Jack. Sure, I can limit even further my night driving so as not to exacerbate my retinal issues. Sure, I could tell my mother to close her curtains on a beautiful summer night near Laurel Beach where she lives. But why? I've gotten the sense that we're beholden to UI for some unknown reason. UI claims that their lights are ordered separately for each town and that the quantity of each type they have in stock does not make the 4,000 Kelvin light easier to install than the 3,000 Kelvin. Why then are they discouraging the 3,000 Kelvin transition? Orange and East Haven, I believe, East Haven, will be the next towns to get the LED lighting. Therefore, our 4,000 Kelvin lights certainly aren't going in tomorrow. In fact, we don't know the exact schedule for installation. Perhaps they will not be starting on Milford for some time. We have the time to ask them, time we would still be paying for the high-pressure sodium lights anyway. And if United Illuminating says that we don't have enough time to make the switch by their schedule, well, it shouldn't be too much of an issue since Mayor Blake says that they'll be on a 7-setting dimmer. Can we limit any adverse side effects by setting the residential areas to a lower frequency to soften the glow and set the commercial or heavily trafficked areas to the standard 4,000 Kelvin parameters? There are many scenarios that I don't feel have been explored. I'll conclude with a final question, to which I hope you can answer yes. Once the LED lights are in, will you be confident that none of our Milford residents need question that your decision to put 4,000 Kelvin over 3,000 Kelvin lights contributed to a medical issue proven to be a result of LED lighting? Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Is there anyone else wanting to address the board at this time? Seeing none, Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 3, consideration of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on May 1st, 2017.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We did not have a special organization meeting to consider, so we'll open under agenda item number 5, Chairman's Report. I'd just like to say that Father's Day is June 18th, and I would like to honor our fathers on this special day. For all of our fathers on our board and in the audience and at home watching, wish you all a very happy Father's Day. Agenda item number 6, Mayor's Report and Recommendations. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Happy summer. I do want to start off by congratulating Peter Aradisi and the Finance Department. If you look at 6A under Mayor's Report and Recommendations, it does list the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the GFOA that, again, was awarded to our Finance Department. So congratulations. This is the highest level of achievement that this organization bestows. So well done, Peter. Well done, Department of Finance. I also want to congratulate our board secretary, Kathy Kennedy, who is the Foreign High School Parent of the Year. Kathy did not attend the Parent of the Year ceremony because she was at her son's Foreign High School baseball game, the state championship. They beat the #1 seeded team in the state that night. They then went on to win 2 other successive games, and they are playing tomorrow at Dunkin' Donuts Stadium in Hartford for the semifinals at 3:30 in the afternoon tomorrow. So if anyone wants to make the road trip up to Hartford, I think Kathy will probably be there. And also, I know that folks from Jonathan Law today, I don't know what happened, but today there was, I know, a track meet that the members of the Law boys and girls team competed in, and also the Law golf team. So we've had a lot of sports success this season. There was a couple issues that came up. One, Wildermere Beach had some issues with Airbnb and the secondary effects associated with that. I've been working with the president of the Wilderman Beach Association. I talked to her again earlier this afternoon, trying to work out some resolutions to improve the quality of life down there and some of the effects that have cropped up because of these short-term rentals. So stay tuned on that. The other issue that came up, at least during public comment, had to do with UI's conversion of our street lights. Presently, we have the high sodium street lights because all municipalities are switching over to LEDs for a whole host of reasons, environmental, cost, etc. UI is making that transition. Bridgeport, Stratford, North Haven, East Haven, those are all communities that have already undergone it for UI. I think UI only covers 17 municipalities. There was a lot of kernels of information that some of it was true, a lot of it was not in the public comment that we heard tonight. This is an issue that I'm very, very familiar with. I am the chairperson of the working group for Sustainable CT that is looking to make the state of Connecticut greener. It's looking to reduce our carbon footprint and make the state of Connecticut more environmentally friendly. It's actually based on Sustainable New Jersey, where we're trying to adopt policies for municipalities to follow so that Connecticut survives into the future and becomes more sustainable. And right at the top, the number one thing that is being recommended by the group that I chair, and again, it's a group comprised of folks from Yale, folks from the Fund for the Environment, a whole host of people from across the state of Connecticut that are experts in energy efficiency and environmental matters. The thing that they're recommending the most, the thing that all municipalities are doing to become more sustainable, to become more environmentally sound, is light conversion. Now, there are some studies that have some negative results with mice that have been put out there. The vast majority of those studies, and I've sifted through a lot, read through a lot, studied this endlessly, are not associated with the street lights as much as they are the interior lights that you have at your residences and at the businesses. It's the interior lights that you're exposed to the most, far and away. I mean, 1,000 to 1. The other thing that the studies show are handheld devices. The street lights, for example, for a 4,000 K, and K stands for Kelvin, which is the color temperature. In order to have any type of effect from the studies, you would have had to look at it for 33 minutes. Now, a 4,000 K light is the industry standard. Even today, when municipalities are given the option of a 4,000 K or a 3,000 K, 13 out of 14 communities opt for the 4,000 K for, again, a variety of reasons, the biggest of which is that it's a lot more energy efficient. Despite what was said today, conversations that I've had even just within the last week with energy experts, it is 20% more energy efficient. And when you spend $400,000 a year on your street lights, that adds up to big bucks. I'm sorry. The savings would be about $400,000 a year if you convert it over from the high sodium to the LED. Now, the things that, if we're going to make a difference from a health standpoint that you have to worry about are handheld devices. The factory settings for an iPhone, 7,000 K. That's twice as much as either the 3,000 or the 4,000. And you're a lot more likely to look at an iPhone for 15 minutes than you are a street lamp for 30 minutes. A LED TV, again, 7,500 K. The full moon, 4,100 K. So those are the things you have to worry about. Again, the full moon has a higher Kelvin than any of the street lights, and there's a lot more likelihood that you're going to look at the full moon for 20 minutes than you are a street light. But even the 3,000, again, it's just a matter of energy efficiency. There's not really a difference from any kind of standpoint between the 4,000 and the 3,000. In fact, the 4,000 or the 3,000 K light is a 4,000 K light with a phosphorus coating over it. So it's almost the same thing. There is an option in the Eversource. Eversource right now does not install the 3,000, despite what was said. It installs 4,000, and it has an energy restrictor. The UI company is installing the 4,000 in other communities like East Haven and North Haven with a 7-node restrictor that will allow the color temperature to be adjusted into the future. But again, this is something that's being driven by the United Illuminating and really all of the other energy providers, all the other electrical providers across the nation. It's something that at a municipal level, we're trying to do with our lighting. This room, for example, about 3-4 years ago, this building was converted over to LED. About 3 years ago, again, your board voted in the energy conversion for our Parsons Government Center. In almost all of our city buildings, our school system was ahead of us. The outdoor lighting that shines up onto City Hall shines in our street lamps and outside street lighting was converted several years ago. This is a lighting that's more energy efficient. It is a different light. It's not as warm as the high sodium light, but it is a better to see light. If you look at it, security cameras that are being filmed at night, those are the type of things where you can see the LED light and you can't see with the high sodium. So there are some positives and negatives, but at the end of the day, this is really about the environment. This is to move Milford forward into the energy future. We'll continue to research and look at the most up-to-date energy efficient stuff, but I'm happy to provide all of you with a lot of the research that is out there, the full scope of research that's being put out by the Department of Energy, that's being put out by a whole host of learned associations, because this is a matter that I have studied endlessly. And with that, Mr. Chair, if anyone has any questions or comments on those items listed in the agenda, please feel free to ask.
Mr. Chair, would this be an appropriate time to have a discussion on LED lighting, or can we schedule a time for that?
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm happy to meet with Alderman Gurman or anyone who has questions. I'm happy to email you some of the research that's out there, some of the studies, and some of the even webinars that I've reviewed.
Well, I'd like to have a lot of information about it, but I think a lot of the people on the board would like to discuss it further before the city of Milford decides to let it go with 4,000 Kelvin. Sure.
And again, it's a UI changeover, but I'm happy to kind of have this, share the information and give you all the background that at least I've reviewed.
And this is the first I'm hearing of it. Do you have a time frame of when they're looking to install?
It depends on their contractor's availability and when they finish up other jobs, but I think Milford is relatively close to being on their schedule. I don't have an exact date, no.
Well, I think if we can schedule something for the board to have a discussion, open discussion, that would be terrific.
Just a point of information, I forgot to mention it during Chairman's report, but month of June is also dog licensing month, and it's a source of revenue for the city. So any one of you that have a dog that's over 6 months old, you need to get a license for them or renew the license that you had earlier. And also the rabies shot has to be up to date as well. Just wanted to share that information with you. Alderman Vecchiarelli. You're welcome. Item number 7 is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. Move on to item number 8, new business. Alderman Vecchiarelli, 8A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the reappointment of Gloria Lanner of 823 East Broadway as a member of the as a member of the Council on Aging to fill the present vacancy, term expiring 12/31/18.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I don't see her in the audience this evening, so we'll have to congratulate her when we see her. And with that, move on to agenda item 8B, Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached master agreement between State of Connecticut Department of Transportation and the City of Milford, the Public Works Department, for readjustment, relocation, and/or removal of utility facilities on highway projects, and to authorize the Mayor and Public Works Director to take all steps necessary, including signing all documents to effectuate said agreement.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the City Attorney. Could you please explain this to me? It's 76 pages of witness that, whereas, and I brought this to some other attorneys, and they looked at it and they basically laughed at it. I'm wondering if you could explain what this 76-page brief is all about and why we are entering into this. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Bevan, I don't know how much time you have. I don't want to explain all 76 pages, but I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes version of what the city is being asked. This document that's before you is a form contract that the state has provided to all 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut, plus utility companies, which basically is the general agreement whereby the state will reimburse municipalities and or utilities if the state is doing work and displacing or disrupting existing utilities. For municipalities, that's your storm drain, sewers, things of that nature. If those things are impacted by virtue of state doing the work on a state road, that this contract is the vehicle for the municipality to be reimbursed for such disruption.
Follow up on that. Is this something that we've had in the past? I see that this agreement is good for 10 years. Is this a redo over like 10 years ago?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Bevan, I believe we've had other master agreements, and this follows those. It's supposed to be a bit of a flexible document so that it has the lifespan of 10 years. And I'm not surprised that the other attorneys with whom you shared may have laughed at it, because it is the state. They do have the bargaining power, if you will. It favors the state more so than the municipalities and or utilities that would be impacted by the state's work. But at the end of the day, it does ensure reimbursement. Absent executing the document, there is no reimbursement if they come in and do work and disrupt our utilities.
So in your opinion, is this something we should vote yes on, or is this something we should vote no on, as far as legalities of the city of Milford and benefiting all the residences of Milford?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Bevan, it is something you, in my opinion, need to sign off on, because if there's work that the state's going to do that disrupts any of our utilities, then we're going to want to be reimbursed. The obligations that are imposed is that we ensure that our damage is properly documented and supported. It's not saying that they won't pay it, but we just can't say, oh, hey, you disrupted that stormwater pipe. We've got to show it, show how much it cost, and show what the damage was. It just ensures good bookkeeping on our part.
Thank you, Mr. Burcham, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Through you to Attorney Bertram. I have a question just about the two-page agreement, the maintenance agreement. It's signed for the city of Milford with the state, but it's the signature is the Public Works Director. Wouldn't it require the mayor or some other signature? I'm just surprised. It's really a question when I read it, wondering why. So it's because the paragraph states the maintenance agreement is entered into by and between the city of Milford with the state of Connecticut. Now, the principal place of business, of course, is the Department of Public Works, but shouldn't there be another signature? I guess I'm not accustomed
Alderman
to
Beatty,
this.
can you just direct me to which page you're referring to?
Oh, I'm sorry, the last page of 8B, so just before we get to the refunds. It's just the last, it's a two.
And Mr. Chairman,
8C.
while Attorney Bertram
I'm sorry.
looks through that passage, I mean, we do have ordinances and there are state statutes
8C.
that does direct the Public Works Director in a municipality like Milford to have full authority over the ability to close roads, issue road opening permits and things of that nature. So this, again, at first blush seems to fall into the same line that it's the Public Works Director who has statutory and local authority to deal with things in the public right-of-way as well as along both municipal roads and state roads.
Now that I understand, and the question was only, in my mind, was only prompted after the explanation that it's really to be able to have the liability for any damage that's done. So then I just didn't think that the individual director of any department, if it weren't Public Works, if it was something else, wouldn't be responsible for the monetary piece of it. So
Just to be clear, this is an agreement where the state is agreeing to reimburse municipalities or utilities for the disruption or removal if they have to move a line. It's not necessarily damage. It's if they have to do something, a line has to be moved somewhere else, the cost is the same. Okay. So it's not a liability as much as a reimbursement for the costs incurred by virtue of the state compelling work done that's affecting utilities other than utilities owned by the state.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just a technical question for the city attorney. In Section 8B, there's a signatory page that appears opposite Schedule 4A, signed by a Ralph J. Carpenter, Commissioner. But it is unclear which department he is Commissioner for. So I just wanted a clarification on that. Redeker gets mentioned, he's DOT Commissioner, but this particular page mentions a Commissioner Carpenter, and it's unclear which
I believe
department
that
he
was the
represents.
policy statement, Alderman Anderson, executed in January of 2006. So the only thing I can be led to believe, these are the attachments and policies supporting the master agreement. So that I don't know, but I believe Carpenter may have been the commissioner of the DOT in January 2006.
All right, thanks very much.
Any more questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8C.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached maintenance agreement between the state of Connecticut and the city of Milford to authorize the mayor and the Public Works Director and the city attorney to take all steps necessary to effectuate said agreement.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor, I believe this is for the new fake brick sidewalks crossing areas. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Bevan, this is a near identical resolution to the one you approved approximately a year ago. This allows us to put high visibility crosswalks on state roads. For example, we did a resolution similar to this for the installation of high visibility crosswalks on New Haven Avenue. This is more of a blanket one because we're looking to put some additional high visibility crosswalks on Broad Street. North Broad is a city street, South Broad is a state road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I reported a few months ago, the high visibility sidewalks that are right now on River Street and Daniel Street, the amount of cars that go through the stop signs, the blinking red lights have not changed at all with the high visibility. I'm just bringing that to this board's knowledge, that the amount of money that we spend on those is very decorative. It looks great, makes downtown look really superb, but it doesn't stop cars. Thank you very much.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the full board. I appreciate Alderman Bevan's findings when he was watching the high visibility sidewalks and the stop signs. I mean, I'm walking around the city quite a bit, and I have noticed very often that when cars are going up to some of the high visibility crosswalks, that they do slow down. I'll see, maybe a brake light just so they're paying attention. Not everybody, but I do feel it's making a difference and it is helping make the city safer. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'd like to call the Public Works Director up to the podium. I'm interested to know if there has been any maintenance done to any of these sidewalks that have already been installed. I know that we went through a winter with them with plowing. I'm just interested to know if they are still down or if they're starting to come up, or what the exact condition they are in presently.
Good evening, everyone. We installed them after we did prep work, which was taking up and milling the road and putting new asphalt down. Once we did, the only issue we had was when the state was doing New Haven Ave, we had some tar drippings that went over the area, and it's very challenging to get that tar off. But as a whole, I thought they've weathered very well.
And they're pretty, they're still pretty solid and adhered to the pavement. So
yes, it's still new. I mean, it's a year-old product. We shouldn't have any problems with it. I'm looking for more longevity, 5, 6, 8, 10 years down the road, and see what they look like then. It's one of the reasons why there's a lot of prep work involved. You try not to go over existing or asphalt that's less than a few years old. You want newer asphalt to extend the life. They're not inexpensive, and I do believe that they make a difference. It definitely highlights it, and Alderman Bevan, I agree. It doesn't correct the whole problem, but I think it definitely improves it.
So the maintenance part of it really hasn't come to fruition at this point?
Nothing yet. There's been some other towns that did it a number of years ago, but it was a different product that had some issues with it peeling, but we have not had that, knock on wood.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Casey.
Just to follow up, Chris, if I'm sorry. It just occurred to me as Alderman Giannattasio was asking a question. If when the roads gets repaved, this has to come up, I guess. Is that, or can it be repaved without the sidewalk being affected? I mean, how does that work?
You could mill to that location, but the idea would be to put new asphalt down, similar to what we did on River Street and Daniel Street. And our goal is to get anywhere between 12 to 20 years out of it. And at that point, the useful life of it would be probably over. And then we'd anticipate installing new ones.
You can repave around those crosswalks, is what you're telling me. Is
yes,
that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I saw it make you come back, but thank you.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So what is the cost per, is it per foot or per, how do you figure that out?
Presently, the pricing that we have is $16 a square foot for installation. That's because we've done a decent amount. Smaller quantities go up to almost $22, but the present number is 16.
So for a typical walk across one street would be how much?
I don't. Let me get my calculator out there, Dan. I'm sorry.
Is it 5 feet by?
It's usually 12 by 30. Just say by 16.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In lieu of putting this down, if we were just to paint it, as we've done in other crosswalks, what would that cost, approximately?
The painting?
Just to paint?
Oh, just a painted crosswalk. That's our in-house team that does that. Bob Trapp is the lead person. It does a tremendous job. But insignificant. It's epoxy paint that we use that we roll on. You know, probably, I don't know, $20.
So the difference is between $20 and $40,000.
Well, let me clarify. $20 for the material, the actual labor component. So it's more than $20, but it's definitely a lot less than the high visibility crosswalks. But if you look at the abutting towns, town of Stratford has done this around their school zones, and I do believe it makes a difference. It definitely makes people aware of where they're at. And I think it's helpful. And, you know, you can't tell, but I believe it's definitely better for the areas, especially where there's a lot of pedestrian crosswalks.
Thank you. And just for the record, what I said before was that the high visibility crosswalks, people see them, but they do not stop at them. If you're an individual standing in this, the cars will keep going. They see it, but they keep going through it. I've done numerous site evaluations, and the last one I did is 94% people will slow down, will not stop at the stop sign, will not stop at a blinking red light. They may see you there, and you may have a foot in this crosswalk, but everyone be very careful because the cars aren't going to stop for you because they don't see you. They may see the crosswalk, but they're going to go right through it. That's what my findings have found, and that was a fact for 2 different times. So they see the sidewalk, but they don't bother to stop at it. Thank you.
I don't think we should make fun of the product so much as some of our drivers out there aren't really paying attention, no matter what you put on the roads. That seems to be my observation. But anyways, any more discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Anderson.
Installation works out to be about $1,500 rounded.
Not that I don't trust you. So, maybe just. So I have it at 5760 a crosswalk. It's 12 feet wide by 30 feet long times $16. 58? I'm sorry, Brian. I thought you said 1,500. I apologize. Yep, that's correct. I'm sorry.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, thank you, Chris, for your answering all your questions, all the board's questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 8D.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request per the attached recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated April 7th, 2017, pursuant to 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statute for the acquisition of a portion of the property located at 625 Bridgeport Ave, consisting of .12 and .02 acres and a 20-foot drainage easement as shown on the attached map, and to authorize the city attorney and the mayor to take all steps necessary, including signing all documents to effectuate said acquisition.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 9, new business. There is no new business. Moving under agenda item number 10, budget memo transfers. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 10A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consideration of budget memo transfer number 7 and number 8, funds 10, FY17.
And seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 11, refunds. Alderman Vecchiarelli, 11A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the refunds in the amount of $35,084.06.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is reports of standing committees. Are there any reports? Alderman Frank Smith, agenda item 12A, report of the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Ordinance Committee of the Board of Aldermen met earlier this evening to consider 2 ordinance proposals. These ordinance proposals are taken up separately. The first, an ordinance is establishing Chapter 20, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Article 1, Division 2 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Milford. This has to do with bicycles, and as reported and as I had discussed with the mayor and our city attorney and our police chief, this addresses a growing problem in the city with regard to young bicyclists who are apparently using the city streets in a dangerous and reckless manner, and there were a number of provisions from our existing state statutes that were brought into this ordinance that are already on the books regarding proper operation on the roadway and the use of bicycles and compliance with traffic control. We also have with us tonight Captain Alexopoulos from the Milford Police Department, who was kind enough to stay. He was helped us out at the Ordinance Committee and has stayed here for our debate on this. This ordinance was recommended by a 3-2 vote by the committee. I would like to make a motion to accept this ordinance as written.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to whomever may be. The height of the cycling season hasn't even begun because of the weather that's been holding things up. I know I haven't been out on the road yet, and I know it's going to become more prevalent with these bikers because I see them doing wheelies and they're interfering with traffic. They're 3 abreast, not 2 abreast. All of those illegal kinds of things that we talked about. And I know the police department and your attitude, and our attitude, hopefully, is to hope, not to punish the punitive piece. I'd like to, but having public awareness that there's a slow process here to get kids to understand what they're doing wrong, because in the first place, they took it on as a challenge anyway. Most of these kids seem to be middle school kids. And I would only hope that in some way there could be a program going into the middle schools and talking to the group of people, the group of kids, and educating them on the law as to the respectability. And I know there was some kind of thing going on with riding on a sidewalk You know, somebody said if you have a 6-year-old child, you know, would you put them in the street or keep them on the sidewalk? Maybe they're more hazardous than these guys because they can get out of somebody's way, but that's neither here nor there. But the fact is, they do take up a lot of the sidewalk, and they are going at quite a pace on the sidewalks in some instances. I also know that and think that we have to help this situation too, because being obstructionists on the sidewalk as using a bicycle or parking it, we've invited this with the new bicycle racks that jut out in front of Cafe Atlantique, that if you park your bike there, it really takes up a good portion of the sidewalk. So I think we need to relocate some of these things. I think that we need to rethink where we put the bicycle racks because of this issue right now that's pending and in front of us. So, you know, I congratulate you with all your efforts to maintain some semblance of understanding and respect that these kids should be showing adults and so forth. But I really think that it needs to get into the schools and some type of program that needs to go along with the idea that this is something relatively new. It's going to be enforced, and these are the ways it's going to be enforced. So education, I think, as we all know, is a good piece. Thank you.
Sure, and to address some of the comments you made, the Milford Police Department Chief Mello is all about community involvement and programs of that nature, and that's why when this first came to our attention, one of the ways we addressed it is to ask our SROs to meet with some of the people that were identified, and it is young adolescents, middle school predominantly, and that's what they're doing now. I mean, if you look back 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was skateboarders. You know, it's a little less popular now. Now the bikes are a little more popular, and you know, our efforts are exactly that. You know, this ordinance and even state statutes and ordinances that we could, state statutes rather, that we could use to enforce these things is kind of punitive, and we kind of look at that as a last resort. So it's up to us to help in the community, and I agree, and the chief, you know, Chief Mello agrees that we need to, you know, explain to the young men, or young girl, you know, young kids that are doing this. Listen, you know, here's what you're doing wrong, because they're not really looking at it as wrong. They're just having fun. They're exercising. The reason they're going so fast is they've got new muscles. They're you know, it's simple. It's a fact of life. But what we don't want to do is cause them a burden. You know, just say, here's your ticket and on your way. So this ordinance, although it parallels the state statute, does have a few little things that we could use to our advantage if it gets to the point where with enforcement. And one of the things that I know I spoke to the city attorney about is the impoundment of their bikes. If you take their bike away for a few days and mom and dad have to come and pick it up, it's an inconvenience, yes, but it's also a way to say, hey, this wasn't, you know, this wasn't something we just decided to do willy-nilly. We've seen an increase in complaints, and I know that one of the programs that we have, if it gets to an enforcement level, because there'll be concerns, and this would apply for Milford residents who are charged with, you know, minor offenses such as this ordinance. And we don't want to send them to the juvenile court in New Haven for something like this, because quite frankly, the court doesn't have, they have bigger fish to fry. So our program is a diversion program, and it's offered, it's not mandatory, but it's offered to, you know, young, citizens of Milford who get charged as juveniles under these minor offenses, and then they have to come down and they have to meet with one of the detectives, and then there's a mandate or part of that where a parent has to come in for one of the sessions to get some therapy or counseling and to talk about the problem. These things are having a great impact because it keeps that young person out of the court, and they get like a second chance, and then they understand. They get to meet with the detective, they get to see what we're all about, and generally we don't have a high volume because they're not doing a lot of things, but everyone that's come in is very effective. We don't get repeat offenders. This is only offered to Milford residents, so I'll give you just briefly, in the last 6 months, there's been about 40 or 50 entries regarding bicycle complaints. And that doesn't always mean that we talk to 40 or 50 people. Just this past Saturday, there were 2 incidents on the 4 to 12 shift. I happened to be working an extra job. And on both of those, officers were dispatched directly without delay because we were sensitive to the fact that it is a citizen's concern. And in both cases, the bicyclists were gone. So the officers tried to locate them in the area. They couldn't be found. So that there are a lot of entries like that that might result with no contact. But of the records we have for that 6-month period, there were 6 summonses. 2 were Milford resident, 3 were Stratford, 1 was West Haven. And that is common for them to travel a little bit, go to the town, meet some people from other end, and go back and forth. So we're seeing a lot of that too. Our programs here in our schools and our media blasts and any other programs we put together, although we'd like them to be, reach out further, they're generally more or less targeting our citizens, our kids.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, and everything, everything that we're going to do, and I know is in the works, that is great, but we learned through time that there's a lot of parent denial, and more importantly than getting to the kids is getting to the parents. We have the same problem with social hosting. You can't convince people that they're wrong when they socially host, and so it's going to be even more difficult without this grave a problem of bicycle riding. Oh, they're only riding a bicycle in the streets. So the fact is, I think the parents are the ones that we need to get to hopefully have that trickle-down effect to these kids. But it's got to be done. It's got both. They both have to be talked to, both the kid and the parent.
And those efforts have been made. Specifically, when the SROs were starting to address this with some of the kids that were identified as being involved in these groups. And the parents, exactly as you said, they really weren't that receptive to our efforts. That's where this ordinance might come in useful, because it's a last resort. We tried everything else. And the parents, if we do a little bit more work, it's going to be a continuous thing. It's not going to finish. I don't think we can put this out one time and then forget it. It's not going to be solved. We're going to have to do a little bit every year. We have the people that do that.
And again, one follow-up, again, with Milford Prevention Council, maybe we can do something together with a billboard?
Sure.
With the riding and the Milford Prevention Council, so we need to work in tandem so that we can get the point across. So I applaud your efforts, but maybe we can get together and talk about a billboard.
Sure. Civic groups getting involved. I know that in the past with the safety, it's been, I think it's coming up this weekend with the bicycle helmet, safe, to do the bicycle rodeo, and they, attorneys are giving out the free helmets to the kids, and the kids get them and go. We could maybe partner up and do something with just like that and put it together.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there is a bicycle rodeo this Sunday, Milford Bank parking lot, another tool to educate folks, kids, about bike safety. And it's one of the things that the police department, City Hall, Recreation Department try to do to put out more information about bike safety. Milford is a walkable, bikeable community, and we want to encourage that. We want it to be safe, though. To Captain Alexopoulos' point, we do a lot in our schools. The police department, the SROs do a lot to help educate students. This ordinance just gives an additional tool in the toolbox, not only to help educate young bike riders, but their parents as well. This gives an extra opportunity so that parents are, brought up to speed as to some of the things kids are doing, and to try to kind of provide more information and communication with our parents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard of several incidents where these gangs of kids are just basically being lawless, and they're frightening the people in our communities, our community here. I've heard where they followed one woman home. These are gangs that surround the car, and she gets out to go in her house, and they're like, "Oh, you don't like what we're doing? Well, we know where you live now." And another incident where a woman was followed into a supermarket parking lot and was intimidated there. And, I watch TV and I see these bicycle gangs in some of our surrounding communities, and they're fearless. And in fact, they even have altercations with people in these cars. And it's like, oh my God, how does this happen? And now I see this happening here. My wife had it happen to her, where the gang surrounded the car. And I can't tell you how many times that I've been driving down the road, especially in Milford Center, and I see somebody on a bike where there's crowded sidewalks, parked cars right on the side, traffic going by, and in the opposite direction, here comes this bike pulling a wheelie, going as fast as he can down the sidewalk. And I mean, just if he lands wrong, not only is he going to get hurt, but then he's going to cause a problem with other people. He's going to hurt somebody else. And, you know, I mean, and when parents, when they come back and they're not too favorable with what the police department's trying to do and say, hey, look, you know, these are very bad things. This isn't what they, it's like, my God, I mean, what happened to just the respecting the laws, respecting the community? And, you know, when I see this type of activity going on, and from what I hear, it comes in from both towns that surround us and from within our town. And they have their own website. They're like, they're building on this. It's like, well, what can you do? And it's really shameful that, you know, they can't channel this activity into something that's better. Competitions between themselves, whatever, but to hang on cars that are driving down the road, get in front of them to try to slow them up and just take control of the vehicles. It just really saddens me. And I really hope that this ordinance will give the police department a little bit more enforcement to say, all right, you want to behave like that? You're not 18 years old, we'll take your bike away. Now you and your mom can come over and get it back. And it won't be so funny then. And then when they start seeing what's going to happen on their website, maybe they'll all just take a different attitude about coming over here into Milford and bothering all the law-abiding citizens. But it really is, it saddens me that these kids are just flagrantly disobeying any kind of laws and rights of other people's, and it's terrible. So I'm happy that you guys are doing all that you can in the school with the resource officers, trying to get them to come in, even when you recognize the problem and you capture somebody to try to educate them. But at least we're being proactive on this, and I'm really happy we have a little bit more tools for you guys to work with. Thank you.
Alderman Frank Smith.
Just professionally and personally, I agree with many of the things you said, and I just want to let you know that the first incident you mentioned where they followed the lady home, the SROs helped to identify those two young men, and they were issued summonses. So, you know, we're going to do our best.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, Alderman Ginatassio reminded me that this particular ordinance proposal was voted out of the ordinance committee unanimously, not 3-2, but 5-0. Just for the record, I was incorrect in my initial statements. Captain, on this, we talked about this earlier in the earlier meeting. This has two components, though, that aren't part of the state statute. One being the fact that there is a, well, they talk about re-education, self-completion of court-approved cycling knowledge, or test in lieu of or in addition to a fine or other penalty. And then later on, he talks about, which I think in all my time as on the ordinance committee here, haven't seen this come up because I've never seen a bicycle ordinance being considered. But the discussion here that the impoundment of the bicycle shall be made to the owner, parent, or guardian. I'm assuming the parent or guardian for these young people, who I guess are young boys, 14 years old or something. And to Alderman Vitale's point, and also to Alderman Vecchiarelli's point, it depends on what you can get in terms of interfacing with the families on these kind of juvenile issues. I could tell you, they always say things aren't the way they used to be. If I was 14 years old and my parents found out that the police had impounded my bicycle and or worse still, had exacted some type of a fine, you know, I would I still wouldn't have my bike back, and I'm 62 years old. I mean, it would have been like I don't know, if these kids are harassing people to literally menacing people, I don't know how much their parents are going to be in terms of, probably don't care about their behavior, but do you feel that's an effective part of this, is that we impound it and bring the parents into it?
I think it is. Generations have changed a lot, and we're dealing with that, you know, and we're trying to work within the means. If you take that item away from them for a while, it's a negative consequence. So if we can't convince them through all our other efforts to do it right and to be respectful and do all those things you mentioned, you know, and show all those things to the other citizens that are sharing the roads with them, then this is the negative consequence of it. It's a little bit more than the state statute, so I think, you know, Chief Mello does support it, I think, for these reasons.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just follow up maybe to the city attorney. Is part of this, Mr. City Attorney, the fact that we've codified this by taking the state statute, but isn't part of this the idea that I think we agree somebody's going to get injured in this kind of behavior, and if this is a social network thing, it's going to grow over the summer, and sooner or later somebody's going to be injured, and more often than not, it's probably going to be one of these kids on the bikes. Is part of this a kind of a preemptive measure on our part to at least have this on the book so that when the inevitable lawsuit occurs, that the city is remiss in its enforcement, we can point to this and say, you know, we don't want to tell you so, but we told you so. Is that kind of what this is, sort of preemptive in that sense?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Smith, I don't want to go so far as to say it's preemptive. I think it's certainly an acknowledgement of an issue that exists, that, you know, in the day-to-day lives of everybody outside there, people have repeatedly come up to me. I know they've come up to Mayor. I know I've spoken with Chief Mello. You know, what is the city going to do to curtail or curb this behavior? And the concern raised by people speaking to me about it is not that they had to wait in traffic or saw. It's concern for the kids performing these acts, these reckless acts, because everybody knows if, God forbid, something happens, the person who's going to be in trouble is the operator of the motor vehicle. I mean, God, hopefully the child is okay, but the motor vehicle operator is going to be sued. You know that, because it's a minor on a bicycle. From the city's perspective, I think this ordinance, it mirrors to a great extent the statutory scheme already available. But like the mayor said, by impounding the bicycle, it goes to what Alderman Vitale said. That is going to prompt a conversation with mom and dad about what their son or daughter is doing on their bike. As a father of a 13-year-old, you know, God help me if he's riding like this. I have conversations. I know I've coached Little League, bitty basketball, children that are doing this. I've seen them downtown. I've scolded them, but unless sometimes kids, teens get, you know, a conversation with a person in uniform, they're not going to listen to just me or somebody else. So I don't know if it's preemptive, but it certainly acknowledges that this situation exists. I don't think it's far-reaching in its efforts. I think it's simply provides law enforcement with a tool to help curtail this issue. But I don't think it infringes upon any other bicycle rider's rights that rides in a safe manner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Captain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to you, through the chair. If you would indulge me just for a few minutes, I have some things I just need to express as concerns about this. I'm in favor of this. Number one, I trust the Ordinance Committee. I think the caliber of the research that they did and the genuine concern they have. I'm impressed with Chief Mello's focus on prevention and community outreach, and certainly your thorough, thoughtful presentation of this whole topic. So I'm in favor of this with the understanding that this is a new problem. It may be developing in scope where that will be a public safety issue if it isn't already, that we're trying to do what's right and give the department the tools to judiciously enforce the issue of public safety. But it is not a crackdown on marauding gangs that makes me sad or and concern like that. And I want to correct that. There's a nuance to the wraparound discussion I think that I'm uncomfortable with. I like the fact that the SROs are going to be doing prevention, as Alderman Vitale suggested, and maybe work with Prevention Council, maybe posters. But I'd like to see Milford, as this small and growing developing city, become a decent bicycle climate, that these youngsters learn that they have to toe the road or take their bikes elsewhere. But that's the spirit of it. And I was reluctant to do the two differences from what is standard with other towns that have in the state statute. And the two things that are different are the impoundment and the fines. And the indulging me, the historian in me would say that Holland was occupied during World War II in one weekend by taking the bicycles away from the citizens. It's a big deal, especially if a child doesn't have a guardian who's at hand, which may be if they're from. So anyway, I want to support this. I trust my colleagues, the police department, the citizens. I'm concerned when I drive that, God forbid, I might hit somebody. I was hit by a car as a child. It can ruin the other person's life. So I think the sentiment is sincere. People aren't trying to be mean-spirited. But thank you for indulging me to get that in the record a little bit, besides this is a terrible concern that we need to address swiftly and accurately. There's a little nuance there. Thank you.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to the captain. What does a concerned citizen do when they see some of these kids on bikes going in front of their cars? It happens so often that they'll just cut right in front of your car, they come out of side streets and just go around, but it's almost like they want to toe that line. And I hate to say it like that, but it's almost like they want to go on the edge, and it just makes it feel more exhilarating or something on the bike. But what do you recommend that a concerned citizen in a car who's afraid of hitting one of these kids does during that time? I know in a lot of our cars now we can just press a button and call the police, but I just want to hear what you're feeling.
Much like any other complaint of this nature, I would recommend that they make a call to the police. If we're not getting the calls, we don't become aware of the problem or the location. But in addition to just making the call, how much information can you provide us? The more information that a caller can give us, descriptions, directions, what kind of color bikes, things like that. There's a lot of information there. It's really hard. I know that the one person that your first incident that Alderman Vecchiarelli mentioned, they actually stopped and took a video and took pictures. Don't do that while you're driving. That's a whole nother issue. But if you can even do that, we've had great success just in that one incident. We show the videos and the pictures to our SROs, and if the kids are Milford kids, they pick them out. That's one of the huge benefits of that program, is that they know the kids. And if we can talk to them, if they're not rude, again, we have other avenues to do. But call us, and I can assure you that the numerous calls we received about these groups going through the center, especially Broad and High Street and all those surrounding areas, the officers that work that are aware of it. They've got it on briefing, and they're doing everything they can when they see it to identify it, stop, talk to them, and start the process for them. And like I said, during the Veterans Day Parade, I just happened to be standing on a corner of Broad and High looking down, and they were coming up from the marinas. And I said, get off the road, stay right there on the sidewalk until I'm done, and I'll cross you, because we were doing traffic for the parade. And they kind of looked and hesitated, but then they did it. So that was great. And then I made a point to get them across. They went right to Tony's bike shop, and I thanked them for stopping and waiting for me. Have a good day, guys. No negative reaction. When they left in a better manner. So maybe a little bit of respect for authority, although I would agree with Attorney Bertram that me being in uniform isn't going to impact everybody like that. there's going to be people who are going to challenge us and maybe go down the road and do a wheelie and wave at me or something. So, but we'll get them later. You know, we'll use this. So.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find that this ordinance is an excellent piece of literature to put us into a spot to where we have some means to correct the situation. My only problem with the ordinance is that the one part of the ordinance that says every person riding a bicycle upon a sidewalk shall be granted all the rights and shall be subject to all the duties applicable to a pedestrian. State law says that you can ride on a sidewalk, but it also says any town or city through their ordinance can change that. Downtown Milford, I've seen it more than once, the same people and other people riding on the sidewalk coming into one of these areas that has the brick sidewalk, crosswalks, just go right through it and almost getting hit by cars. Being on the sidewalk, going twice, 3 times the speed of a pedestrian, going with pedestrians and against them. I would be in favor of this ordinance saying that riding a bicycle on a sidewalk is prohibited. I know that most of the people on this board are against that. So I'd like to make an amendment to this ordinance, removing the language of every person riding a bicycle upon a sidewalk shall be granted all the rights and shall be subject to all the duties applicable to a pedestrian, to read, riding a bicycle upon a sidewalk is prohibited. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
To inform the secretary what page you're on. She got it.
Did he get a second on it?
We have the amendment and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate Alderman Bevan's amendment, but I would caution this board strenuously, and I caution this board strenuously from adopting this amendment as a father of 3 children under the age of 7 or under the age of 8, all of whom are just now learning to ride the bicycles. As a dad, I only allow my children at this point to ride their bicycles on the sidewalk when we're going downtown or other places. They do have to follow the rules that are set forth in the state statutes that deal with pedestrians when they're on the sidewalks. Obviously, when folks are on the street or the public right-of-way on public roads, they follow the rules of the road for vehicles. There's 2 separate ones, and I do understand that municipalities can eliminate the use of bicycles on sidewalks, but again, Milford is not one of the type of municipalities where that would be safe. There may be rural communities out there where that's appropriate. Milford, there are times, I know firsthand, that it's not safe to ride anywhere but the sidewalk. So I would caution this board to adopt a piece of local legislation that strictly prohibits riding on the sidewalk. I think that this board does need to acknowledge that folks have to take additional precautions and additional care when they're on the sidewalk, and there's a different set of rules when they're on the sidewalk. But an outright prohibition is something that I'm not comfortable with.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I I would like to echo the same sentiments as the mayor, that our sidewalks provide a safety area for anybody that's on a bike, whether you're an old person or a very young person. That's your safety. There are streets, that have bike lanes, and I suppose those would be for the more avid biker that knows how to go through the streets and all the traffic laws and everything. But for the most part, myself included, my grandchildren, we use the sidewalks, and we use them respectfully, and we use them to provide us safety. I would hate to think that this board would vote in favor of disallowing bikes on the sidewalks, because I guess the phones would probably light up in the mayor's office for the next few days to make sure that, that if that ever passed, that we would rescind it. So I just want to say we need the sidewalks for the safety of our citizens, whether they're walking or on a bicycle. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to voice my concerns and my opinion. I would have to agree with Alderman Vicarelli and Mayor Blake, and I also would agree with Alderman Bevan in the respect of, if there's someone that's riding a bicycle aggressively, but I don't think that that's why we're truly here tonight, because of the fact that people are riding bicycles on the sidewalks. I believe that, the sidewalks are used for many different reasons, not just for walking. There's kids riding, there's scooters, there's big wheels, there's a lot of different things going on sidewalks. So I would not be in favor of the amendment. I think it's a little overreaching. I think that that's not why we're here. That's not what truly prompted the ordinance. I think it was more of, a group of young kids riding maybe all at the same time, but there is exceptions, and I think there's most people that do ride their bicycles on sidewalks when they have to, only because of the topography of the street, and it's the safer place to go. And I know that bicycles have lights, and they have horns, and they have ways to, let people know that they're coming. So I don't think that that's really the issue at hand. So I just wanted to, weigh in on that, and I would feel much better if the amendment was, at this point, possibly rescinded. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so I understand, Alderman Bevan, what he's asking to do is to amend this because the state says you can't ride your bicycle on the sidewalk. We're acknowledging that, but also putting in the provision, but unless otherwise made legal by the local ordinance. Am I understanding what you're asking, what the amendment entails, Bill?
Yes, that was the original amendment, and at this time I'd like to rescind my amendment on this, which I wanted to do prior to the last three people speaking. So I'd like to rescind the amendment that I brought up before. Thank you.
We have to rescind the second for number one, and then you can rescind the motion.
I will rescind my second.
Thank you, Alderman Beer. Now you could rescind your amendment. So on the original motion, any more discussion? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a difficult situation. This year I will be topping 25,000 miles in riding a bicycle over the last 25 years. Do I ride on the sidewalk? No. Do I ride close to the curb and almost get hit by a car? Yeah, especially down Buckingham where it's a challenge that, you know, you come 3 feet or 3 inches away from my mirror on my left side. Just like driving a car, if you're not good at it, you practice it, and you need to. It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle. I would love to have a differentiation of saying, hey, just little kids, not kids over 12. Let me see your license. Let me see your birth certificate. You know, that kind of thing. It's difficult, and I just think there has to be the idea of education and respect. We had bike rodeos. You know, we did it all. We did it all. You know, and you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work. And the fact is, it's the kids, the generation, it's the cult, it's the things that are going on today, and the challenging and the risk-taking. And there's a lot of risk-taking on the road, not only with the kids on bikes, but with cars. And they come pretty close, and especially down Buckingham Avenue, they're going 60, 70 miles an hour. You may say no, yeah, they are. And I've been riding in that area. But you know, I'm for this amendment, or I'm for this ordinance, and I would love to see something like that happen, but I think it would be just impossible just to differentiate and to do all of that thing. And I think we just have to talk about safety. We have to reissue and revisit that issue all of the time. Safety, safety, safety. Visually, I think we can get together, do that billboard, and I'll talk to Wendy to get more safety visibility out there, and I'm for it, so thank you. Just wanted to make that observation.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Gurman.
One more last quick comment. And so I'm out in the 4th District, Woodmont, and we see a lot of this in the summertime on Beach Avenue. And I'm not sure if these kids are from the Woodmont area, but or local next town over, but it is a big issue. But I like what the captain said as far as taking video or pictures. I think that would help, and we can call the authorities at that point. But it'd be helpful if we had some kind of evidence on what the kids look like. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any more questions or any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Frank Smith.
I would ask for a 5-minute recess, please.
5-minute recess. We are out of recess. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, well, excuse me, hold on one second.
Mr. Chairman, the second ordinance considered tonight by the Ordinance Committee is an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Employment Conditions and Benefits, Article 3, Unclassified Officials and Employees, Section 1917B3 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Milford, Employee Benefits.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I'd like to have the mayor put a little light onto this, if you would. A little more information, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the rest of the board, this is a long-standing city ordinance that brings parity to our department heads, to what the benefits are with the bargaining units. This adjustment that you folks are considering this evening cleans up the existing ordinance. It removes some positions that no longer are non-represented city employees, like the assistant city attorney and the trial attorney, who are now represented in a bargaining unit. Positions that didn't exist when this ordinance was created, like the permanent land use director, are now department head positions that need to be added. Positions like the human resources director, that is a new position in the sense that it was a name change from the personnel director. So this ordinance does clean that up, but the underlying thrust of this ordinance, at least at the time when it was enacted and adopted, I'm not sure when, but before my time was to bring these department heads up in parity with the bargaining units. This is the same amount of benefit vacation time that the bargaining units received. For example, MSA, it mirrors that. None of these positions are contract positions. All of these employees are at will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the mayor, the ordinance before us, is this additional to the vacation that the directors are already getting, or is this just outlining what their vacation would be?
This outlines that the vacation, again, for the first is 15 days or 3 weeks for the first 5 years. For the second 5 years, 20 days paid vacation, and after 25 years, I'm sorry, after 10 years, 25.
I'll maybe rephrase my question. I know that the directors of these departments put in a lot of overtime, and some of them may have been comped some days or some hours. I'm seeing heads being shaken. So I'll rephrase my question. We'll pick on the city attorney because he's here. If he's been in his position for 10 years of service, this is saying that he'll get 5 weeks of vacation. My question is, maybe I should ask the city attorney, is this 5 weeks on top of another 5 weeks you already have?
Don't I wish? No. No.
Okay,
as currently drafted, just to give you, I'll use myself as an example. In other areas of the ordinance, I believe it's 1916. My position is not eligible for overtime or comp time, compensation time. Okay? My position is in the ordinance already, existing ordinance, 1917B3. Upon hire, I get 15 days vacation, 3 weeks. After 5 years, which was January of this year, no, I mean, November of 16, I'm sorry. November 16, I got an additional week of vacation this year, so 20 days, 4 weeks. If I make it 10 years, November of 21, I would be entitled to 5 weeks, 25 days. This doesn't change that. It's not an increase. What you have is trying to bring parity amongst various department heads. Peter Ardisi, for example, sorry to put the spotlight on you, Peter. His vacation is set by section 19.3 and mirrors 1917B3. Peter, as finance director, upon hire gets 15 days. After 5 years, gets 20 days. After 10 years, gets 25 days. What the proposed ordinance tries to do is tries to take the human resource director, so the department head for human resources, the community development director, health director, recreation, and put them on par with the other department heads. Takes them out of, and Christine Angela, the library director, takes them out of 19B subparagraph 4, which provides for 10 days upon hire, 15 with a cap at 20. So what we're talking about is one more vacation day at each level based upon a 5-year windows. I hope that clarifies it.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. City Attorney, let's keep you on the hot seat for a second. You're not a full-time employee, correct?
Correct.
Okay. This ordinance relates to full-time employees, though, doesn't it?
I would say that I'm an anomaly, Alderman Vitale, but I'll leave that to this board who didn't change the ordinance when they changed my position.
Okay.
But if you want to talk about the others, that's fine.
The point is that if you're a part-time employee, you get the same benefits as a full-time, and that would, you know, that is beside the point, I guess.
Well, it's duly noted. Thanks for pointing it out.
Is there a reason, or correct me if I'm wrong in this assumption, after 10 years it's 25 days. Was it previously 20 days?
For whom?
In the ordinance. For in the ordinance.
The ordinance that's before you, the only change is adding positions.
So it didn't go from 20 days to 25 days after 10 years?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that.
No,
I didn't know that, so I thought it was an additional 5 years for those 5 days for those people.
The existing ordinance, if there's no action taken tonight, the positions, not the person, the positions of Public Works and the Law Department would get what they already get, which is 3 weeks upon hire, 20 days after 5 years, 25 days after 10 years.
I guess my question is specific. After 10 years, this ordinance says 25 days. There's no change from the previous ordinance. It wasn't 20 days, was it?
Correct. You are correct. There's no change in days.
But how come, if I can... But that ordinance, we looked it up and we thought it said 20. We thought that was an additional 5 days.
You were looking at 19B4, which caps out at 20 days.
My friend Alderman Bear looked at it, so I don't know. This is ordinance 3.
1917B3 presently deals with the Law Department and Public Works. 19B subparagraph 4 is where the positions, the unclassified positions that we're seeking to add by way of this ordinance. Library director, HR director, health, recreation, and community development.
Everything in blue is new to this ordinance.
Yes.
Okay.
And by point of clarification, Alderman Beer wasn't wrong. Everything in blue was not specifically enumerated in 1917B4, but was addressed if you pulled out the schedule of employee of classes.
Okay. It's a little fuzzy-wuzzy. This is a fuzzy math thing. Okay.
It's not fuzzy.
Was a bear, I know. Okay, let's move on from that. I just have some other pieces here. See, I'm opposed to this only because of the fact, and I applaud, I really do. You know, I understand the time it takes because you never do this job in an 8-hour job, and I don't think there's a start time or an end time. I experienced that. Anybody who experienced management, whether it be a school, whether it be a business, has a little bit of flexibility with their employees, okay? So when you contractually or put something in an ordinance, somebody's either going to live by the contract or going to die by the contract. I mean, that was my favorite saying when somebody said to me, gee, I have a funeral to go to, it's only a couple hours, should I get a substitute? Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. And I'd say, no, we'll cover your class for a couple of hours, it's okay. That's a perk. But when I ask you for something now, I'm going to remind you what I just did for you, so therefore, you know, one hand washes the other. Having said that, these people, these directors, are compensated well. Some of them make more than the mayor. So they're compensated well. Their reward is that paycheck at the end of the week. They get their vacation days. And if I were to, and I know perception's reality, if I were to some way look at a printout, and we all punch in, I guess. Everybody punches in, I think. Wasn't that the rule that everybody punches in now? If I were to look at a printout of all of the arrivals in the morning, job starts at 8:30. Would I see anybody coming at 9:30, 10 o'clock because they had permission to do that? Because they were at a late meeting, don't worry about it, go home a little earlier today. I can't believe that, number one, that doesn't happen. Can't believe it, and you're not going to convince me it doesn't happen. And that's okay. But the fact is that's a little compensation. That's where there's some compensation going on. The other thing, I heard the mayor saying that there's no carryover in weeks, but I don't know of any contract, and I've been negotiating with Massa and the other side of the city for many years, and the fact is not only can you usually carry over, and that's probably in the contractual piece, carry over some time, or sometimes they buy days back and up to a certain point if they're not used. So I think that in these budget times, and the perception out there is that we need to be, really, really tightening our belt. The fact is that when we add more people to this, it costs us money. It costs us money. Somebody's paying for it. Somebody's paying for it. It's got to come out of some kind of budget or some kind of department monies. So for these reasons, I can't be with this. I really can't. They're well compensated, and if, again, there was choice.
Let somebody else speak.
I don't believe it from you. I don't believe it from you, who stands up and talks for
Alderman
hours.
Vitale, finish your sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Finish up, Alderman Vitale.
So the fact remains that the idea here is the compensation. The idea here is there is the salary involved. There was choice when the people made these decisions to take these positions to know what the job entailed. So and for those reasons, I'm against this ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of clarification, all of the folks that this existing ordinance applies to, this proposed ordinance applies to, they are all at-will employees. There's no contract associated with any of these positions. The other point I want to make is that there's no fiscal impact associated with this. None of these employees will receive any additional compensation. We do have an existing ordinance that prohibits any kind of overtime, any kind of additional compensation to exempt employees, of which all of these people listed and are enumerated are.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support this ordinance. It's going to clear up a lot of the old ordinance, the people that were not included in this ordinance but still had vacation time. But this really lays it all out and puts everything in order. I mean, I wish our city charter was put in order. This puts things in order. This does not cost the taxpayers any money. This puts the directors in line with the unions. And it also, when you think about it, I mean, these are directors of our departments. And, it's like, for those people that work out there for a living, one of the most important things for them when they're out looking for a job, first is to get the job, but the next thing, they look at is like, how much time will I have for vacation? I know the benefits and stuff like that too, but time to have with your family is absolutely critical. So I mean, what do you want to give them? 1 week, 2 weeks? I mean, this is very reasonable, and it's what the municipal unions are getting here. And it also eliminates people that shouldn't be on it, and it puts people that should be on it. So, I mean, it's just good business. This is good policy, and this is what we should do. And it's not about the dollars, because it's not costing us anything. And they're not getting any more than what they were going to get before. So, I think we just belabor this and try to just make it seem like they're getting something for nothing. These people deserve this. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So I just want to, we've heard a lot, and I want to be quick with this. I just want to kind of clarify that. Essentially, this ordinance is standing. We're adding 5 director positions to be a part of this ordinance, which will essentially give them an extra week vacation based on their years of service. Is that correct, Mr. Birch?
Exactly. You know, positions that one didn't exist are renamed. The other thing is that it does bring it in line to parity with the existing bargaining units.
Okay, so it brings it in line with parity, and these 5 positions are all positions that do a lot for the city and spend a lot of additional time than their 40-hour work weeks. Right. Thank you.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When this ordinance first came out, I was under the wrong impression of what it actually was, and thanks to the mayor and to the city attorney, if you were to be in the private sector, you would be hired and you'd get X number of days, weeks, vacation, very similar to this. And in the private sector, it's thought of as vacations are very, very important as far as productivity to the person taking vacation and being time away from work. At first, I was led to believe that this was an additional thing to their vacation. So if someone had been with the city for 25 years, they were getting, we'll say, 5 weeks vacation, and this now gave them 10 weeks vacation. But I've been told that's not true, that this is just coming up with a vacation schedule for those people. I apologize for misunderstanding the original part of this ordinance, but as long as it's just giving these directors vacation to which they actually need to be more productive for the city, what I was against, I'm now for giving these people vacation.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to make a point, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the city attorney. City Attorney Burcham, the people that are being added, they are benefiting by an extra 5 days.
Vacation is a benefit, so yes.
Okay, I think, so it is, they are being included and they are benefiting by being included. Now, they are department heads. However, they are at-will employees. They're not in a collective bargaining unit. So this is, they're already getting vacation. So I don't really see the reason why we need to even add these people. To me, if this ordinance was in its original form, and I understand that it came to us because of the fact that we have to eliminate the city, the assistant city attorneys due to a recategorization. That's the original thing that prompted this ordinance.
Yes, if I could just add to that, because at one of the recesses, I made a few calls, had a few conversations about how this came up, and that was one reason. But I spoke to someone that spoke with our current HR director, and it was prompted by a comment made earlier about why didn't these people affected, why didn't they just negotiate, more vacation when they were hired? A couple of them did. I don't want to name names. A couple of them did, because the private sector, when you start out, is 3-4 weeks. This is not the private sector. I understand that. They asked for it. We said, no, here's the ordinance. If you want to change it, you've got to get the ordinance passed. It's set by ordinance, which is set legislatively by you fine folks. So it's not that it wasn't asked or requested. It was. When the assistant city attorney and the trial counsel became part of the city hall union and the ordinance had to be changed to reflect that, there was a request by those saying, hey, if you're going to change the ordinance, can you please revisit our request to put our compensation and benefits, not our compensation, our benefits, on par with other department heads, like the public works director, like the finance director, like the city attorney. And that's the spirit of it. But to your point, yes, it is a benefit. Theoretically, the city would get, if you qualify based upon years of service, they would get 1 week's less worth of work that they have to pay for, paid time off. But it's not going to change the fiscal impact. It's still going to remain the same. The salaries will still be the same.
But it's an additional benefit.
It's an increased benefit.
Right. So it is essentially going to cost the taxpayer more money. So
if the taxpayer is paying $80,000 a year salary, they're getting $80,000. That's not changing. I mean, we think we're splitting hairs. I agree with you. If you work, how many weeks are there? There's 52 weeks in a year. If they get 2 weeks vacation, then you get 50 weeks worth of work. If they get 3 weeks, you get 49 weeks of work. So yes, the taxpayer gets 1 more week where they're not going to see, if you approve this, the HR director in the office.
Well, it is an increased benefit. It is going to ultimately cost the citizens more money. I just want to make that clear because there's been some conversation that that's not the case, and I just can't accept that.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I respect your opinion. I'm just telling you how I interpret it. I'm not saying it's not subject to interpretation. I don't mean to suggest I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it's not an increase in salary, it's an increase in benefit.
Right. It's an increase in benefit. So, I just feel like being that these people, they all want to be included, it sets a precedent now down the road. There's going to be more people that are going to want to be included. So, again, where does it end? I mean, our state's in a crisis, and a lot of it has to do with benefits and insurance, and this costs money, and for us to sustain this, and to add this, and especially at this time, I think is the wrong time. So for those reasons, I don't want to support it. I just feel that there's no reason for it at this point. These people are being well compensated. Nobody is there watching their hours, okay? They're on an honor system. I know some of these people don't even clock in, they don't clock out. So we don't know truly what time they start or what time they go home, okay? But, they're on the honor system. And they're all getting vacation. So I think that I'm comfortable with, the way things are for right now. And, I'm not going to be supporting it as presented. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I don't want to belabor this. We do have, for city employees, for both bargaining unit employees and non-represented employees, a Chronos time clock. Everybody has to enter in their hours. We can do it electronically, and it is collected. The number of hours that folks work during the week is submitted every single week.
Mayor Blake, through you, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I know that there's a mechanism in place, but I can tell you firsthand it's not being used. I've seen documentation and I don't know if it's because people forget. I would like to think that it's not done intentionally, but people that are heads of these departments, some of these people are not clocking in their hours.
Alderman Frank Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's been adequately explained that this is a budget neutral ordinance in that it is taking care of certain organizational titles and bringing them in. But as I think was pointed out, the city attorney, if somebody is compensated $80,000 and they get an extra 5 days, it's up to them as department heads to organize their department to allow for their 5 days absence. It seems as if Alderman Ginatasio's main complaint about this is the very idea that somebody's getting more days on the beach than they should, and that somehow that is inherently wrong. I don't see that, and I know, and I think we all know that the city of Milford is not known as the top-paying municipality in the state or even in the area. I know firsthand that when we hired the new library director, we went through 3 acceptances only to have those people depart before the start date because they just weren't happy with the compensation package. I talked to the mayor about it at the time. We didn't budge on it. If they had negotiated something on their vacation time, I wasn't aware of it. But I know, for example, Chris Angeli, for example, spends a lot of weekends down here working with the Friends of the Library at the library, quite apart from her normal hours. I see her at the library late at night. And a lot of these people, by the way, the department heads, live some distance from town. And that also, not that that's a justification, but I think we have to take all this into account. The bottom line is it does not have any fiscal impact to this city in bringing these people into parity with the bargaining unit and the department heads and the other departments in the city. And I think it is in long-standing custom that we do this long before our time with the city, and I think it's appropriate that we do it again here.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Alderman Smith. Alderman Smith, you know, that might be your perception of what I think, but it's not accurate, okay? There's a lot of people out there that have to work, you know, probably maybe 1 to 2 years before they're even eligible for a vacation. So, you know, this is very generous in what you're proposing, and you know, if you guys had it your way, you would be paying everybody top dollar. I mean, we have a position, and I'm surprised that he doesn't get added at some point, is our open space director. Okay, that was being paid through a grant, and you thought it would be better.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a point of order here?
Through the budget, through taxpayer money.
I totally disagree with the speaker here. I think he's not germane to the subject that we're talking about. We're talking about the open space manager. We're getting that we would hire people for more money. This is all irrelevant to what we're talking about. If you want to talk about what we're on, fine and dandy, but don't start wandering off.
I'm not.
Let's stay on the subject, please.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll just finish with this respectfully to Alderman Vecchiarelli. You know, it just shows that you're a Democrat and we're Republicans. That's the difference here, okay? You just want to spend more money.
Last 2 years, we've lowered the taxes.
And
okay? I haven't seen that done too often with the Republicans.
And that's being done right now. So, you know, I'll just leave it at that.
Just stay with the motion. Any more discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Anderson.
If I remember correctly, for the last 2 years, this board, Democrat majority, voted for a tax cut, and you voted against the budget. By voting against the budget, you're sending a message to the taxpayers that you're for a tax increase rather than a tax decrease. We voted to reduce taxes 2 years in a row.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Alderman Anderson, the taxpayers are smarter than that. They know that we probably could have cut taxes even more, but by you giving money back into the budget, you didn't allow us to truly benefit the full cut. That's the difference. They're smarter.
No more. Obviously, no more discussion on the motion, so we're going to bring the motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan?
No.
Alderman Beer? Yes. Alderman Casey?
No.
Alderman Gurman?
No.
Alderman Giannattasio?
No.
Alderman Golden? Yes. Alderman Grant?
Yes.
Alderman Hardiman? Yes. Alderman Shaw? Alderman Smith? Yes. Alderman Vecchiarelli? Yes. Alderman Vitro? Yes. Alderman Vitale?
No.
Ten yes, 5 no. 10 yes, 5 no.
10 yes, 5 no. Motion passes. Any other reports of standing committees? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.